Okay, so I did actually record the Zoom lesson from today, but for some reason it did not record the sound. So I'm just gonna talk about tone and what we talked about in today's lesson here. So if you missed the lesson, you can get an idea about what we talked about. Okay, so, Zoom lessons I'm going to be having on Wednesdays and Fridays. They are always going to be at 12:30 around lunchtime, and you need to come. Okay, so um, you don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to, but I would like to see your face because some of you I don't know what you look like. You can turn your camera on with a virtual background. That's a cool thing to do. Attendance and participation are part of your grade, okay? So it's very important to come to these meetings because it will be a part of your grade and also it helps you understand a particular skill that we're talking about each week. And each lesson, when we do these Zoom calls, will have a particular skill that we're going to focus on, and then there'll be an activity for you guys to do while you're listening so that you get to understand what this thing is all about. And lastly, ask questions, okay? Otherwise, I don't know what you know and what you don't know, and what you understand and what you don't understand. All right, so for this week, we are going to focus on tone, the tone of a text. So, what is the tone of a text? Well, the tone of a text is the author's attitude or feelings towards a story or the characters. The author's attitude or feelings towards a story or the characters, all right? That is what we call the tone of a text. And I've got on a list here of some tone words. So there's actually two lists. On the left-hand side are what we call positive tone words. So if the writer is feeling generally positive or happy about what's happening in a story or about a character, then these are what we call positive tone words. So things like eager, interested, encouraging, delighted, excited, right? And there's different degrees of intensity here, okay? And on the other side, on the right-hand side, you'll see some negative tone words, and this is where the writer is not feeling particularly good or particularly happy about a particular character or what's happening in the story. So you see I've circled some examples here. This word apathetic is a great tone word to use, and apathetic just means that you're not really interested in something. So for example, if you're in my class and it looks like you're falling asleep or you're looking out the window or you are playing on your phone, right? I would say you were apathetic. You weren't really interested, probably because I wasn't teaching very well. Another negative tone word is anxious. So if you're worried about something, or if the writer is showing that he's worried about a particular situation or a character, we might say the tone was anxious. And then on the bottom here, I've got sarcastic. Okay, so sarcastic tone is, for example, if I said, I really like doing homework. Now, you can tell from my tone of voice that I'm being sarcastic. I don't actually mean that. But it's a little bit harder with a text to understand that that's what I mean. And in general, how we tell what a writer thinks about a particular situation or a character is by looking at the choice of words. Okay, so word choice has a fancy name. It's called diction. Is how we tell what the author's tone is. Let's look at an example. So if you remember from The Pedestrian, remember that text we looked at in Unit 1, where Leonard Mead is walking around the streets and everyone's inside watching TV, right? So this is a particular passage from the text. Everything went on in the tomb-like houses, the tombs ill-lit by television light, where the people sat like the dead, the grey, or multicolored lights touching their faces, but never really touching them. Okay, so if we're thinking about what is the tone of this passage, how does the writer feel about this situation? How does the writer feel about these people watching TV? Okay, we have three options here: hopeful, mournful, which means very sad, or C, furious, angry. And really the tone of this passage is B, mournful, very sad. He feels sad about these people, okay, that they're watching TV. And how we can tell that is by looking at some of these words he uses to describe them. So for example, tomb-like houses. Tombs are like graves. That word tomb is repeated again, the tombs. Ill-lit, which means badly lit. People sat like the dead. Okay, that also gives us a tone, a very mournful, sad tone. The grey or multicolored lights. Again, these lights, which sometimes are grey. And then lastly, touching their faces but never really touching them, right? The writer is using this word touching in two ways here. Touching as in physically touching their faces, the lights physically touching their faces, but never really touching them, and he's using the word touching in the second sense to mean it doesn't really affect them. Okay, they're not really interested in what they're watching. So we could say that the author's attitude towards these people is mournful. That's his tone. He's very sad about the situation. Let's look at another example. So this is a GIF it's actually from the camera in this Uber driver's car. And you can see that he had some passengers in the back, and the girl in the middle, whose name is Gabriela Canales, she, just before she leaves the vehicle, she steals all this guy's tips from his tip jar. Okay, and there was a lot of articles written about what happened, and this is an article from the New York Post, I think it is. This was written 3 years ago, and we can try and think about what is the writer's attitude towards what this girl did. Okay, how does he feel about this girl, about what she did? So the article reads, the Brooklyn 18-year-old who swiped an Uber driver's tips described herself Wednesday as an average teenager doing dumb blank 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 and learning from her mistakes. Gabriela Canales was caught on dashcam video as she furtively stuck her hand into a driver's tip jar on August 12th and ran off with her spoils. Spoils just means treasure here. Desperate for justice, the driver immediately posted the video on social media where Canales was identified and swiftly condemned. Now I'm being harassed and my pictures that were taken at different times in my life and I have no connection to this incident are being posted throughout the internet for clicks, Canales claims. I've had to shut down all my social media. Canales has since commented that she feels guilty and has apologized for stealing $18 from the driver's tip jar. Bills she snatched while after unapologetically smirking right into the mirror-mounted camera, no less. So if we're trying to think about what the writer feels about this, okay, we have a choice here. A, apathetic. Remember, apathetic just means not really interested. B, joyful. And C, disgusted. Okay. The tone, the writer's attitude towards this girl, is best described by C, disgusted. And how do we know that he feels disgusted by this girl? Well, we can look at some things he says in the text. And in particular, we might want to focus on that last line where he says, bills she snatched while after unapologetically smirking right into the mirror-mounted camera. So he's describing this girl's attitude, right, as she's stealing this money. And he says she's unapologetically smirked. So we can tell from that the writer of this article is disgusted by what this girl has done, disgusted by her actions. And we can tell that from those words, unapologetically smirking. Okay, so whenever you're trying to work out the tone of a text or the tone of a passage, you really got to focus on some of those words. In this article, we have also what Gabriela Canales herself thinks about the situation. But remember, we're not interested in what she thinks. We're interested in what the writer thinks, the author's tone. So you've got to be careful to think about who is actually speaking in different sections of the text. Okay, so that's why when she talks about, that she's being harassed and stuff, right? We're not interested in how she feels. We're really interested in what the writer's attitude towards her is. So that's why we focus on that last line when he talks about her unapologetically smirking. Now we can tell he's disgusted by what she did. So when we're looking at the assignment I posted this week, this is number 2.9, tone in a rat's tail. This is what the assignment looks like. Okay, so there's a video to watch where the guy goes through tone, just like I've just talked about. And then you're going to open the document A Rat's Tail at the bottom there. And there's two things you need to do. The first thing is to annotate the text to identify the 6 plot elements. If you remember, the plot elements are exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. Okay, you just have to highlight it in the text. So if you go into the text, you'll see that I've already highlighted the climax. That's the section in green. So you've got to go through and try and identify all of those other different elements. And as I said, you don't have to write a comment. You just have to highlight the specific section of the text. So that's part 1 of the assignment. And then for the second part of the assignment, what you have to do is you'll see that there are 3 grey boxes in the text. And I've given you some suggested tone words, 3 suggested tone words. So you have to choose one of those tone words and then think about how you know that that's the tone of that particular paragraph. So let's look at this example on the page here, right? We've got a situation: as he was leaving the kitchen, John looked at me and muttered, "Thanks, rat," without realizing it, blah, blah, blah. So what is the writer's tone towards the events described in the above paragraph? Choose one, then explain using words from the paragraph to support your answer. So you'll choose one of those tone words, and then you'll pick out words from the paragraph that tell you that that's what the tone is, and that's what you'll write in the box. And that's what we have to do for that assignment. We'll be doing some more practice on tone tomorrow. Thursday's assignment will be like a kind of fun multiple choice quiz. So that will be on Thursday. So if you're still stuck with tone, send me a message in chat, or if you're having problems with any assignments, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.